And we can just dance the night away until we get no more. I'll shake all the hurt away so you can feel and forget who you used to be. For just tonight, could you just dance the night away?
Hi, my name is Maddie Wilder, and I don't, I'm just going to get into it. I don't know how to do an introduction. I honestly don't really care. So, I don't want to help women fix themselves. I want to help them see themselves differently. That is my thought. And I think that is my reason. That's why I'm here doing this. What do I think that this will do? I want to put good out into the world. And I think that we are all in some type of dysfunctional relationship. Like, literally, that is the whole world. We're surrounded by dysfunction. And after I started going to therapy, I looked around only to find that I didn't have as much health in my life as I thought I did. And I continue to learn about myself. I continue to learn about relationships. And I have learned and seen how important the relationship is that you have with yourself. And I think that maybe I used to think that changing myself was the answer. If only I could be smaller, more perfect. My cat is here. Dude, you're so sweet. If only I could be smaller and more perfect and not disturb anybody or not speak up, not be too loud, not say anything that someone else didn't like, right? And maybe I used to call that perfect, but today I think I would call that shrinking. I used to think of myself as broken. I was wrong in a world where everyone else was right. I was the only one struggling. I I was the only one who didn't have it together. I was the only one who has this many issues. Like, that's how I felt. And sometimes I still feel that way. I think I could never really reach my dreams, or I'm so messed up, I will never be good enough. And I think that's why I personally feel like I thrive in the self-help world. I thrive in therapy, kind of that question of how can I fix myself? How can I be better? How can I improve? Like, I'm always striving to do that. And I think I thought, and I still think this, right? Let's be honest, that the internal criticism or self-hate was self-improvement. I am making myself better by picking myself apart and being determined to try and to be perfect. But like, what even is perfect? How long can I spend fixing myself? Forever? Like, I love growth, and the more I grow, the more I find myself leaning into opportunities to make myself grow even more, which I love. And I love that feeling after doing something scary, right? It's honestly so amazing and it's so empowering. But I think something that's changed for me was that instead of seeing myself as a problem and my quirks and issues as something to fix and cover up, I started seeing myself as someone who needs to be understood, someone worth being loved and someone who's maybe a little bit okay just the way that she is, quirks and all, right? And this isn't easy. Like, it's literally not easy at all. And like, this video feels like it's for me. Like, this is an example of how I want to show up in the world. And maybe this helps others, which I do hope it does, but I know that this video is helping me. It's helping me grow. It's helping me accept myself. And I don't think that I can talk about this if I am not trying to live it out. If I'm not out here feeling the real pain of change, if I'm not willing to feel the discomfort of growth. And I think I have to be doing that first. And that is really hard. And it's taken me a long time. And it's taken a lot of, honestly, like these random projects and like all these different roads to be able to sit here today. Literally, I'm talking alone in my room to myself. And at some level, I'm comfortable with who I see and who I hear, being okay with who I am and not hating her and maybe even liking her. That's not easy. And that did not happen fast for me at all. I think back to a few years ago, or maybe probably even less than a year ago, listening to my own voice was awful, right? I hated it. I never thought that I would be confident enough to sit here and record a video of myself and not cringe. But like I'm doing it, and I think that I can do this because of how I think about myself, and so I wanted to share about that today. So, how do I think differently about myself? How could you start thinking differently about yourself? And to me, what's helped me a lot is, starting with curiosity. Like, I think that we have to be curious. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? Why am I the way that I am? Do I even know how I am? Do I even know what I'm like? And I spent a long time asking myself questions and hanging out with myself alone and honestly spending time with myself and getting curious about what I thought. And that is hard. And there are some really difficult moments I can think back to, but even when it's uncomfortable, we can still be curious. Why is it uncomfortable? What about it makes it so uncomfortable? I think, and I will continue to say that we have to start being curious towards ourselves. I also think that I had to start listening to myself. I could be curious about myself all day long, but if I didn't listen to what came up, what good would it do? So I had to start listening to what I was telling myself, listen to what I was saying, what was coming up for me when I was curious and started asking some of these questions. Like something will come up for you, and you just have to be willing to hear it after you ask yourself the question. I think that I also had to start with compassion, like having some sort of compassion for myself. And honestly, like life feels like it's been really hard for me. And sometimes I'm really mad about that. Sometimes I wish my life would be easier, or I know I wouldn't be here. Like sometimes I wish my life would be easier, but I know that I wouldn't be here today if my life didn't happen the way that it did. Sometimes I find myself judging me or saying, like, why are you so messed up? Or I find another area I need to work on in my life. And I think, I'm forever gonna suck. I'm forever gonna be stuck in this place where I'm just always, having something to work on. But I have to have compassion on myself in those moments. I didn't choose the things that have happened to me. I didn't choose my family of origin. I didn't choose the environment that I grew up in. And so when those types of things impact me as an adult, and they will and they do, I have to try and have some compassion on myself. We can't choose what we go through and we can't change the past, but we can change how we respond and what we choose to do going forward. And I think choosing to have compassion on our younger selves really matters. So, with all of this, I used to see myself as so broken. Like, I went through a divorce at a really young age, and literally, I thought that I would never be lovable again. Like, I thought no one would ever want to be with me, like, even if it wasn't true, right? Like, that's how I felt, like, to my core. And I worked with a therapist, and so it's not like I was just out here like, oh, don't feel broken, and I fixed it. Like, no, I had to do some work and I had to start thinking about, maybe there's some good that came out of it. I started having a lot more compassion towards other people that were divorced. That's a good thing. And that came out of me being divorced. I started learning about what a healthy relationship might look like, and that's a good thing. I found so many amazing people that showed up in my life because of the support that I needed. And again, that's a good thing. So I started seeing that maybe there was a lot more good to come. Maybe I wasn't actually broken. Maybe something that seemed really bad in the beginning could be something that made me into the person that I am. I would say that I feel like I can be so wise now because of my divorce and what I've learned throughout that whole process. I can't even imagine not being divorced now. Like, I'm so strong and I'm so resilient and I have so much courage. And I didn't know if I would have learned that about myself if I hadn't gone through something that made me be that strong and made me grow and made me change. So, changing how I thought about this situation helped me change how I thought about myself. And when I stopped feeling so broken and I actually saw the truth outside of the lie, I could grow, I could change, I could stop seeing myself as something broken and start seeing myself as someone that was strong. So when you change how you think about yourself, you can live differently. And I know, I saw that for my own life, and I hope that others see that for their lives too. And I think that's why I'm here. Like, I'm a little scared. Like, I know that there's haters on the internet. Like, I know I have flaws. I know I have quirks. But I think that if I didn't do what I was feeling pulled to do, I would be letting the fear of whatever's out there in the world win. And I just like don't think I can let that happen. Like, I just cannot die like letting fear win. I just can't do that. So I hope someone gets something out of this, but if not, I feel like I did. So I want to ask, what if you started thinking about yourself differently? What if you started seeing all the ways that you were strong? What if you started being curious towards yourself? What if you asked yourself questions and really tried to listen for the answer? What if you started having compassion on the things about your life that you didn't choose or couldn't control? And this is the work that I want to be doing. And so I think I'm just going to keep doing it.